bad words. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes, Charles. What are you drinking?
That's okay. Well, that's it. This is a limited edition 40-year anniversary of Sierra Nevada. It's called Hoppy Anniversary. Ha, ha, ha.
Happy anniversary. That's great.
And so yeah, it's good stuff. And I'm sorry to hear about your sciatica, man. I've had that off and on over the years. It's a drag, man.
Well, I think it's mainly because I was actually drinking too much in between kind of getting all this, figuring out what the hell I'm going to do, like with all this coronavirus stuff. So I was drinking too much. And as a result, like usually I'll start to feel some inflammation or I'll start to feel like some tightness. And I think probably the stress, I haven't been sleeping in my own bed. So I think it was like a mixture of things. I wasn't exercising, I was stressed, I wasn't eating a lot. So then I started drinking a lot of cocktails with my parents. So I was making this. I'll tell people what cocktail I was doing. So I did some bourbon, a shot of bourbon with a shot of this Caribbean stuff called Velvet Falerno, and
Wow.
then some. Then I just top it off kind of with mix it up with some grapefruit juice, like a shot of grapefruit juice. And so I was drinking those, and I don't know, we were just having fun with cocktails, man. We tend to like to get together and cook. So so that's typically, what I'll usually have, but I had to call a timeout, man. I was ready for us to do 2 beers with Charles and have a beer or something. I almost went and got it today, and then my better half of myself was like, "That's probably a bad idea, man. Like, you're feeling better." So, so lots of it has been going on, Charles. I don't think I've actually talked to you in over a year. So it's
Yeah, I totally burned out about a year and a half ago. Just my energy level and willpower, everything just collapses, like from just overwork, age, etc. So yeah, it's been I've been just kind of cruising along the rocky bottom of my energy level. So yeah, I'm sorry to say I wasn't that responsive when you reached out earlier.
It was fine, man. I don't ever take it personal. I think it's one of those things that you and I are both trying to work on stuff and we're both trying to do things. And I felt like we've always just kind of had the understanding of when we can get together and communicate, let's do it. But otherwise, it's not any pressure. I mean, I haven't been the best podcaster in the world since I've been running my business. Like it went from like, hey, I'm trying to do these things and I'm working a job in corporate America to, oh, this is your full-time gig. You own a house now. You own a business now. You have 30 restaurants you're selling to now. And it's just, I have a couple people, I got an employee, then I got a minority partner, farm manager that helps me out. I mean, it's kind of a decent sized operation. I mean, business wise for as many people that I have. Um, so
Absolutely. Well, yeah, bring me up to date on that because I don't know if Ohio as a state has locked down or is Columbus locked down or is the campus basically closed and it's everybody's on remote learning.
yeah, so so that we were kind of the first city. I mean, you know how Ohio is. We usually dictate what's not California and New York. So because as we've discussed in previous episodes, they're kind of their own countries. And Mike DeWine, closed the schools. First, he canceled the Arnold's Fitness Expo. So when everything started to like really get a little bit crazy, people were starting to freak out. Um, and I thought, you know what, restaurants are probably going to be something that this could impact me. So that was my thought. This could impact me. And then I talked to a couple restaurant owners and they were like, man, people just need to wash their hands. And I'm like, I agree. I'm just saying this could kill traffic a little bit. And then schools closed. And then that's when everything started to like, first they canceled the Arnold's Fitness Expo. And that's about probably conservatively an extra $55 million for the city. So I was like, well, that's not good. So I was okay. Like I was like, I'll have extra stuff. I've been meaning to pick up extra customers. I've been meaning that there's restaurants that have wanted my stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna have stuff that I can actually give, samples I can actually give. If things slow down, I'll just pick up more customers. And then, shortly after, schools were closed, and that's when all the grocery stores just went insane, and people were buying mountains of toilet paper, watching the news, scaring the heck out of themselves. And then, man, Sunday was coming around. We were like, I don't know what's going to happen. I was talking with chef, and he was hanging out with me Friday. Then I messaged him Sunday after harvest, and he was like, what did he say? He said, "Yeah, we're in code red right now." It's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "The wine's talking about shutting down all the restaurants for dining in." So I was like, "Well, I don't sell to any fast food joints, so that's not good." And then he made the call, he shut it down, and all my business went from, like, 30 customers to 0. And I was like, "I know there's not gonna be I doubt any of these restaurants are gonna try to pay me when they gotta figure out how to cover payroll, they gotta figure out what the hell are we gonna do to be closed for X amount of time." So, it was kind of this scary thing, and then my buddy, we just hung out on my birthday. On our birthday, we were kinda sharing a birthday, and, he's, like, the 8th and I'm the 4th, and he had said, he was just sold out, and he was doing really well in all the craziness because, he doesn't use computers to make orders. So, much like I've built my business with this text messages and in-person conversations. Um, he had built his business with, just, making phone calls, writing stuff down with a pen and paper, not some cute computer automated thing. So they were just, I mean, they were super busy. So he was like, "Well, do you wanna come up here and try to sell your greens?" And I was like, "Why not?" I pretty much had 2 harvests because it was so slow. Oh, no, I had, like, a full harvest in there. So then I had a couple more harvests, and I immediately had shut down plantings. We're just about to start it back up. So then I went up to Toledo where they have like a bunch of small grocer chains, like the House of Meats, and there's these Five Stars. There's just like smaller grocers that are close to like 100 years old, or they're well established in their community places. Like they just got a Whole Foods, and I think unfortunately people in Toledo think that's a good thing. But they have family-owned grocers that are still there, and I'm like, "Man, that's perfect for my business." My local mentor and I down here, I he's already selling to grocery stores, so I kinda have a non-compete with him. And so that was kind of where we were at was, I'm gonna go up there, and so then I was just basically it's the east side of Toledo where people are not food educated. It's not a place to where, you can you would expect to find microgreens at a grocery store, to find somebody that knows what they even are, that's not like a chef or something like that. And so it's the east side where it's just, factory workers, blue collar people, and I was making sales there, so I was like, "Man, if I can sell these here, I can sell this stuff anywhere." So, but man, right now it's a lot of me standing in this little store, Charles, and educating people, and then I've been going out trying to pick up these other grocery stores. I got a confirmation to pick up 2 more stores, but I'm waiting on the bean counters to put through the paperwork. But me and the produce manager are super cool. So yeah, just transitioning, and then once restaurants fire back up, then I'm gonna have a lot of problems. But hey, they're better problems than not having any sales. So that's where
Well, let
I'm
me
at.
ask, locally here in Hawaii, a lot of restaurants are trying to, do the takeout thing.
Yeah,
Even sort of higher end restaurants that like the kind that you have been serving. And I don't know, nobody's going for that in Columbus, or it's just like too much hassle, or they're not really set up for it, or.
I don't think they're really set up for it. I think they're one thing that their their issue is that um people they basically they lay off most of their hourly employees, and then they were just trying to run salary at one spot that was doing it, and it was like it was enough business to keep the doors open, but it wasn't enough business to bring back the hourly, and the salary people were just getting burned out. They just pulled the plug until all this shit ends. So I think there's some spots that are still doing dine out only, or carry out only, but they're just struggling. I mean, restaurants don't make a ton of money anyway, and then if you cut out people coming in when in the Midwest, the number one form of entertainment is going out to eat and having drinks, it's kind of an issue.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now I'm not in Honolulu, but that's where all the TV stations are. So when you look at the local news, there's ads where the local restaurants have set up a site, and they basically are saying, help us out here, folks. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, order something on this website, and it like dozens of different restaurants that are there, and help us out. And so I think that was a kind of a good approach. Just be direct, like, hey man, we need your help. Choose a place and order something from one of us.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the rest of that's been going on. I think for I mean, I pretty much have been in Toledo, which is about 2 hours away, but thankfully the price of oil is it's so low. So it's I filled up at Costco for $1.15 a gallon on the way home.
No, $1.15.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Oh,
it's triple that here. Triple.
yeah.
It's like, oh, it dropped from 365 to 345.
Not here, so but that's at Costco. So everywhere else you can find it from like 139 to 170. So it's like, well, this stuff is so I can gas is affordable. My car, I paid $1,200 for, so it's a utility. It's a utility player. I'm gonna run it till it dies. So, and it's back and forth. I've been staying with my parents, spending a lot of time with them. My good friend Greg, I mean, he's really laid out the red carpet. He's been in the Toledo grocery store business for like 46 years. So
Wow.
it's working out well. I think I'm hoping that, the restaurants do come back. They will eventually. Right now it's just basically I'm back in 2017. I'm just starting over from scratch.
Wow, that's harsh. But let me ask you about your dad, because just to kind of catch up, it's been like, yeah, a year, five
Yeah.
quarters, whatever. And he was working.
He was working on the pipeline. Um,
Yeah.
he's been off a year and that's another thing with the price of oil so low. I'm not sure when he's going to be able to go back to work, but he also paid off all of his debt. So he thankfully has a pension. But I mean, like the cool thing with me going up to Toledo is like, we can experiment with growing microgreens at their house, so then they potentially have extra money. So it's like, let's not just think about expanding my business. Let's see if I can cut my parents in who are really helping support me in this way. I mean, like my stepmom's always cooking. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just enjoying time. I mean, my dad and I, we've spent a ton of quality time together. They don't really go out anyway. So with this lockdown, so I didn't get to the point where they did all lockdown, but I'm a farm. So as a food producer, Charles, I am an essential employee. So I printed out a sheet for myself saying, please grant me safe passage, Mr. Authoritarian.
No, you're totally in the front lines, man, because people are buying stuff that's basically coming out of some Nabisco factory, in the Midwest, right? And that's all good, right? I mean, it's good that stuff is still being made,
Yeah.
cornflakes and everything. But for fresh food, yeah, it's local is the way to go. So I'm really pleased that you've been able to sell in Toledo. And it goes to show that people are willing to be flexible, right? Maybe they never had a microgreen in their life, but they're willing to, hey, for a couple of bucks, it's like lettuce, right?
Well, yeah, and I think too, like I'm selling them on like nutrient density. So it's like, hey, it's one of these little radish shoots is like 5 full-grown radish roots. No way. Yeah, I love radish. Cool. So I think too, just giving them ideas, but I mean, it's a grind right now. I mean, thankfully I had all those years of retail sales but it's one of those things that like I can go back and work retail because I'm doing it for myself. But man, if I had to go get another job right now, I'd really be hating life. I'm not gonna lie. Like I would be pretty miserable.
Yeah, well, and the thing is you're providing something essential, so there's got to be a market somewhere. I mean, I just exchanged emails with Stacy Herbert, who's Max Kaiser's main squeeze, and she's saying they're in North Carolina, I believe. Maybe it's South Carolina, but she's saying the shelves are stripped, and they're actually ordering like fresh vegetables and stuff from like an organic farm in Indiana. So there you go. In other words, like, hey, some innovations happening now. I don't know what the cost would be because they'd have to be using, FedEx or UPS, right?
Yeah,
Which is
that was
still functioning.
my
So
concern. That I mean, I've thought about doing that, but my biggest concern was that I don't. Amazon's even delaying stuff. So if Amazon's delaying stuff, the whole goal is fresh produce. It's like there has to be a closer place for me. I feel like who I am and how I run a business, it is if I have to go to a website or I'm regarding online sales, I'm in trouble with this business. Like that's
Yeah,
I mean,
agreed. It's like localized is the way what we're trying to do, right?
yeah, it would kind of go against what I'm doing here and I think it's it's just a weird it is a really weird thing right now. Like it is there's a lot of uncertainty. When I go into stores, like it's hard because for me, I see all the economic things that are going on right now, everything, and to me, it's just like, man, this is a lot of BS. Like I'm not saying there's not a virus. I'm just saying, the flu kills so many people every year, and at elderly are at risk for that. And it's just like the media, I feel like, has sensationalized this so much and just put this fear of the unknown. I'm not saying you shouldn't be cautious. I'm not saying you shouldn't be careful of our older population, but I think we should do that probably every flu season. But
Yeah,
you
let's
don't.
talk about that a little further, because there's these two camps, right? One is this thing is really like the new plague, and it's going to kill millions, and then the other side is, hey, look at we're overreacting, right?
Yeah,
And so I thought let's talk about this, because my opinion is, okay, overreaction is typical when you don't know what the hell the problem really is, right? And so we didn't know enough. And so if you and I were in a position of authority, well, sure, I'm probably going to overreact too, because you know what? If I just blow this thing off and say it's nothing, and then tens of thousands of people end up dying, then like, hey, I blew it.
yeah,
So, now that we're getting to know more, like this malaria drug, anti-malaria drug works for a lot of people, then that's a positive. And so, anyways, other people have come up to me and said, hey, look, we should just be self quarantining the at risk people, the super elderly, very elderly people over 70 and certainly over 80, and then people who are really ill or have multiple chronic conditions. They should be self quarantining, but the rest of the population should be allowed to just go on with their lives, and that seems to make sense. So I'm hoping we can come around to that. But what do you think would work?
I think what you just laid out. I think what's weird is South Korea. People are talking about how they went through it. They never really shut the whole country down like we're trying to do now. Like they had
Yeah.
certain areas that were really bad that they would quarantine. Um, yeah, I think it's, let younger people go at their own risk. I think let people go at their own risk. I think it's to me, it's just, we got hit so hard last year with measles and rubella vaccines. Oh my God, it's coming back, the measles and rubella. Meanwhile, Merck is hitting their all-time fourth quarter profits and nobody's really saying anything. So we kind of already have this fear thing it's put in our heads. Bill Gates keeps coming out, hitting us with these pandemic things. Netflix is pushing this BS down our throats. And it's just, I think people watch the news. They see Orange Man bad. Now people are so insane. Adam Curry says, I'll shout out Adam Curry. He's like, it's just Orange Man now. And it's just like we can't have a real dialogue. Like I can't really have criticisms of Donald Trump and expect to have an intelligent conversation. Like I can with certain individuals, but it's like there really is like dimension A, which is reality, and then there's dimension B, which watches the news. Orange man bad, orange man amazing. Uh, Trump is secretly, COVID-19 is secretly we're locking up all the child molesters. Fine. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and it's like people are just trying to consume it. It's like, man, I'm just trying to run my business. Like, can I please like, I'm gonna probably have to eventually wear a mask and gloves, I feel like, to make people feel comfortable. But, like, mainly when I'm in, like, these when I'm in the grocery store, when I'm out in public, like, I'm just trying to be normal. Like, guys, like, "Hey, like, I'm not a stranger." And now it's like you're afraid to cough, and it's just there's so many things that it's like, man, it just feels like a psyop. It's like there's so much because people are so brainwashed and so afraid right now that I don't know what I can say to them beside I mean, it's just insane. Like, I had to go to the bank today. Like, it's just and then we're using words like social distancing. What the heck is social distancing? Like, are we trying to say, like, "Stay away from me, don't engage with human beings"? Like, I think we're already kinda going that way with how the way we get on Facebook and try to tell everybody how much we know, and it's instead of, like, let's have a human connection, like, I built my business on human connection. I know the people I bank with. I know most employees' names when I go into a restaurant. Like, I know, like, I am choosing to be places. I'm going out in public with a purpose. Now it's like, man, like, my purpose is it's like, go to Toledo, come back. I go to the bank, I can only use the drive-through. I don't know these people. Who are these people that are in there? Oh, they're probably from the main Battelle branch of the credit union because Battelle's probably closed. And so there's also like, let's work from home. And so all these companies are sending people home to work. And it's like, what are we doing from home? Well, guess what? You got to watch your kids. You got to get your work done. Some of you that like bartenders in restaurants, let me show you, Charles. So I applied for unemployment because my business was taken away and they said in Ohio, let's do it. So let me think. I think I can add a screen here. How do I add a screen? Man, I was really looking forward to this screen share. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Share a screen. We're going to share this one. Okay. Can you see that, Charles? So
Yeah.
So this is my denial. So this is so many restaurants that I work with. So many people are telling me this is their experience. So you click this. I can't see why I was denied. We are currently unavailable. I can just now file an appeal. Like when I would get an appeal, I couldn't do anything. And it's like, these these governors are rolling this stuff out for the safety of people, but they're not looking out for the safety of people. It's just like you're clearly overreacting because there was no infrastructure in place. How many of these people that normally file unemployment are working at home? Working from home is a skill that most people don't have. So I think it's like there's so many factors, and it's like there's so many. Like I was reading one of your blogs. It said it said, could the coronavirus be popping all of our bubbles? And it was just like the recession was due back when Trump got elected. And you even wrote Trump might doom himself because these bubbles are going to burst before, and then coronavirus hits. And now all these bubbles are burst. And what's weird though is like the stock market has a lot more to do, it seems, with oil and the oil war than anything else. But the economy, like shutting down the country, I don't think it's helping. I don't know. I mean, people are freaking out because of test results, and it's like, guys, the more they test, the more people they're going to find to be positive. But that's not saying, do they have symptoms? Are they sick? Or are they just carriers? There's so much we don't know, and there's so much the news isn't helping in reporting because they're reporting so much. So, anyways, I went on a huge tangent there, or a huge.
No, no, not at all. I think that's important because, we all read, like, I mean, as much as you have time, we all have read hundreds of different things about it. And I honestly think, kind of stepping back, it's like China did the world a grave disservice by not being more transparent, right? Because they kind of kept everything secret. And so then it's like, well, then the world knows very little, right? I mean, all we knew was bang, January 23rd, there's an epidemic. They notify the World Health Organization, and then a couple of weeks later, they shut down their whole country, or at least the eastern half. And it's all like, well, wait a minute, this must be pretty serious, right? Because why would they be doing that? And so then I think all the other leaders in all the other countries, like Italy and Spain and so on, it's like, well, they're wondering, how do we react? And then everyone goes, well, let's just see how things go, and then things start, going south, and then they go, well, we better do what China did, right? I mean, what else would you think? And so I think, and not to blame China per se, but it's like their lack of transparency, and then it was kind of like from this is nothing, this is no big deal, to suddenly we're shutting down, our entire economy. It's all like, well, wait a minute, explain to us why. And there was never an explanation. you know?
Yeah, I
So that didn't help.
no, and they also they kept the they kept out the World Health Organization for months or for weeks. Um, so I don't it's so frustrating. I think that the other thing that's weird too is think about how many protests there were from from of populism movements going around the country. Now those are all gone. I think the yellow vests are the last ones. I mean, all the protests in Hong Kong were all the story. Then this virus breaks out, and it's just like all that's gone. There's so much moves that are being made, not being reported. Like, so I don't know. I try not to think about it because it makes me kind of angry. It's just like it's out of my control. I gotta just sell in these damn grocery stores and get my plantings fired back up so I can get this money coming in. Uh,
Yeah, well, it's weird you were denied unemployment because have you, as a small business, you've been paying into the fund, right? Or
don't think so. I haven't paid any funds. I don't know. I actually might be able to cheat the system and get unemployment. So basically, because they're greenlighting a lot of unemployments, I just don't think they understand what they're doing. I got some paperwork from the state of Ohio for my company, and I was in Toledo, and they wanted me to fill this out about my claim. So I wonder if I fill it out and I send it back in, if I'll get approved. I don't know, Charles. I will see what happens. I'm not counting on it. It was just basically like, well, let's see what happens. So, but I don't think I've paid into any fund or paid any insurance. I think you have to have some kind of insurance or something. I don't know, man. I'm just trying.
yeah.
So
What about all these loans and stuff like that? I mean, I know you sent me a link to that
yeah,
and a diagram. I mean, is that something that you personally would pursue, or do you think that's for people like the restaurants? You know, because your customers, your restaurants. I'm thinking,
I'm worried.
again, I don't know what it costs to rent a place in Columbus, but I'm thinking it's probably serious money
Yeah,
just to cover rent, utilities. You know, like 10 grand a month or something, and then add tens more for payroll. But it's probably serious money. So maybe those kind of businesses would actually need a loan. And
yeah,
I don't know if they're going to loan enough to really make a difference.
yeah. And it's also weird too. Like you can get it some of it forgiven, and it's just there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. And it's like kind of like the interesting thing. We immediately spend $2 trillion on Wall Street, and then we're giving what to Main Street, like small businesses that provide jobs and make our country go around. And of course, we're kind of just giving them some shit or bull crap. Sorry, bad mouth there. And I think and they're the SBA.gov. My buddy sent that to me. They were just approved. But it's just like, yeah, so of course, like the small businesses that are doing everything they can to get by and give people jobs and everything else like that, you're going to give them a loan with interest. And then you're giving everybody else stimulus, including Wall Street. I don't think Wall Street has to pay back that $2 trillion. So yeah, I don't that it is a possibility. I should actually look up that graph and show it to people. Because it was an interesting image that I thought you would find interesting. Let's see.
I did. And yeah, let's talk about that. Like, we know that there's this huge, wealth and power inequality. So Wall Street gets all the free money, and it's all like, what are they doing with all this money? Like, what's $1 trillion a day in repurchasing agreements? And we only know that it's like huge leverage. Where they're betting on stuff. They're not creating goods and services and jobs. They're just creating wealth for themselves. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, temporary
And
corporate and small business liquidity facility. So TC self. But here we go. So we can see this. You were just, I mean, so 1 trillion facility to provide low cost loans, help small, medium sized enterprises. So basically it's meant to, I think, to cover your payroll. So I don't have a payroll. So my payroll is just kind of me and the way I kind of do things because I'm so small. But yeah, so partially
but
oh, keep going.
No, no, I'm sorry. I was going to sort of half joke and say, well, why don't you just borrow 50,000 bucks and you can buy a second house?
I should. I was thinking about that. I was thinking like, why can't I just take advantage of this? I am actually looking into it because it does show that some is forgiven. So what is it? I think it's SBA.gov. Thing I can type. SBA.gov. So if you go and it's like the small business, so we go to the loans and it's showing you. So they have all this stuff for the COVID-19 stuff now. Lending partners, loans, small business you, guarantees, loans. And I just don't, it just makes me uncomfortable, man. It's just like the more and more they can do, you go and you build your own business so you don't feel like a slave. And then as soon as they can, they just try to throw more shackles on you. And
Yeah.
it's like if I wasn't like my other farmer buddy, he runs out of a warehouse, so he has rent. It's my house. I mean, my mortgage is it. I mean, my utilities. I mean, I'm running it as a small home business. I mean, it's a farm. So I just think that I was prepared to an extent for this, but I'd actually just kind of use some of my like emergency fund to do some car repairs and stuff like that. So I think, I mean, I'm not hurting. I mean, my expenses aren't high. I mean, I'm uncomfortable because my income went away. But it's like, okay, so I can go up in Toledo and I can feel good about my bunch of hours of work for $185 in sales. You know what I mean? So it's just because I gave a lot of stuff away too. But it's like, but it's also, I'm at a penny double every day stage versus, you know what I mean? So it's I'm still building it. So I don't know, Charles. This stuff it is alarming, I think, especially the economic factors. What do you think all these bubbles bursting?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me first give you kudos for being flexible and just because this is what I think you're good at, and this is like the skill that I think we need to like reintroduce to America. I mean, a lot of people have it, but a lot of people don't. They've kind of forgotten that you got to be flexible, innovative, try stuff, and hey, fail. Right? I mean, it's like you got to understand if the real world is going to hand you failure like 4 out of 5 times, or maybe 9 out of 10, right? And it's like
Yeah.
so if you're going to put your whole self-worth and put your whole identity and stuff on whether, oh, I've got to succeed at everything I do, it's like, well, I'm sorry, that's not the way life is, at least
Yeah.
not my life.
Well, I think too, I mean, shout out your book, Get a Job, Build a Real Career, Defy Bewildering Economy. I mean, like having that loose social network, man. I mean, I'm in Toledo because of somebody in my network. Next thing I know, a guy's got a camera in front of me. He's just rolling out the red carpet, helping me as much as he can. And, shout out to my buddy Greg Huntermark. He said, business is good for me. I know you're taking a hit, so it's good for me to help you. So, and I think too, like they're trying to upgrade like it's this brand. It's, I'll shout it out, the House of Meats. It's been in Toledo for a long time and it used to be across wherever there was Anderson stores too. So before they closed all the retail stores, and so that's something they want. They want to have more produce, and I think people are looking to get back into. I mean, just the amount like people would go to his store and they always had meat. They were never out of meat. Like they didn't have issues because they're not using the computer systems that everyone thinks is going to save us because I don't know. People believe the technocrats too much, man. It's like, no, like our human connection is what saves us. Like like these are tools. Email is a tool. This podcast is a tool, but contextually, like people just watch TV. They think the only way to make money is to go online and buy Facebook ads, and it's just like, no, man. Go out and meet people, smile, have relationships. Like have real human dialogue. But I think people just kind of forget how to do that.
Yeah, well, I think you could easily teach a course on marketing on that level. I mean, I think you really could. You've got the skill set and the experience. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't have that. And I've never taken a marketing course at a college, but I suspect that people would learn a lot more from you. Yeah, so the bubble's popping. Well, what worries me, Drew, is like the small businesses that are your customers. And
Yeah.
in this in the two areas I know, Hawaii and the San Francisco Bay Area of California, like expenses are just ridiculous, right? The rents are outrageous, the utilities are high, there's all these fees and all this compliance crap. Like and so it's like I'm worried that small businesses, there's going to be a ton of people who are just going to say, you know what, I'm not going to reopen because I was kind of hanging on and working my ass off, and I'm done. I can't take any more of this. The stress of the last couple of years because expenses kept going up, and I think a lot of people are in that boat. And so that's what worries me about employment. Like you said, it's really the front line of employment, small business. And so you can say, well, some percentage of the population, 20% work for the government, and maybe 20% more work for kind of quasi government, academia, colleges,
Walmart,
utilities.
Amazon.
Yeah, hospitals, all of the healthcare. I mean, all of that basically is paid by the government one way or another. So it's kind of quasi government, but what about the rest of the economy? And so, sure, people that work at the, like, say, water treatment plant, they're golden. We still need, treated water and sewage treatment plant and highway repair. There's a huge amount of work just to keep the infrastructure going, and those people are going to be okay. But that's maybe 40% of the economy. So what about the other 60%? And as you and I have talked, I mean, running a small business, especially with employees, as we've talked, and high expenses, it's like it's a killer. It's a killer for you psychologically, and that's where I'm kind of afraid of that pop. I think real estate's going to pop in markets like, you know, Brooklyn, NYC, Denver, Seattle,
Ohio.
LA, San Francisco. Who can afford a 1.4 million for like a rotten bungalow? I mean, it's just like crazy. I don't see that's going to be sustainable.
I don't either, and I'm hoping it pops here. Like, I bought my house for. I mean, you can look it up on the county website. I bought it for like $45,000,
Yeah,
and
what a score.
yeah, and now I was looking to expand my business because it was like, well, I need to pick up more restaurants, and what a great way to cash flow more real estate. So I was looking to buy another house, but houses were being bought sight unseen on my street for like $97,000. This is not a nice. I mean, I like this neighborhood. It's an up and coming neighborhood, but this is not sight unseen $100,000 in Ohio. Like,
Wow.
people think it is because it's like, and people are like, oh, it's good for us, but it's like, man, let that bubble burst, man. I'm tired of out of state investors trying to just dump their money here. They don't care who rents. They don't care. They don't come to the property. The property that sold for 97,000 has been sitting empty for 6 or 7 months after they put, like, they bought it from the homeowner who I told this lady I wanted to buy the house. I tried to rent it out for her at one point. She is a total jerk. So I'd use another word normally, but the owner died. That was there's her stepdad, and they just sold it to some lawyers for 20 grand, and they spent Lord knows how much trying to fix the basement wall, all this stuff. And then it ends up selling for 97, and it's just sat empty. There's no one there. I used to park my truck in the driveway because the person that rented there, she's a nice older lady. She she didn't drive, so I just parked my truck there, so it wasn't in the street. And it was just like, so I just lost a cool neighbor. The house is empty. You just drove up the price of real estate here, so now I gotta wait. Then there was a house that sold directly across the street from me in like 4 days for 87,000. And then you call the realtor, and they're all super cocky about it. Oh yeah, that market's on fire. It's like, man, shut up. It's just so stupid. It's like, it is so stupid because it's like, I can't wait for all you to fall on your face because, number one, you've been rude. I'm tired of, man, everybody too. I get wholesalers calling me constantly, or, hey, we want to buy your house. Would you accept a cash offer? And I'm always like, yeah, $250,000. Final offer. That's it. And then I say, let me know if you want it, and then I hang up. Or I've tried even talking to them to get more another property. Like I need another property, but it's like sell this to me on owner financing, please, because I cannot. I'm not going to go to a bank. The banks aren't going to approve me. Even though my business is doing well, I don't make shit on paper or crap on paper. So it's just one of those things that it's like, I'm still trying to sort out my issues that I have with the IRS, which I'm having a professional do. And so it's just one of those things that it's just like, man, like I need to get back probably into, once this is all done, I'll probably go back in my local RIA and just try to find people that like, hey, I know you still got money in that self-directed Roth. How about we do this? I'll give me a high interest rate. I don't care. I'll pay 10% on a mortgage. I don't want to go through a bank. I'd rather buy it through you. So, because eventually, if I have enough money, I can make an offer and say, hey, how about I just pay you this amount of cash now and we'll settle it. So that's the plan.
Yeah, well, and I know you got into that that side of finance, which is interesting. One of my correspondents, he's got to take care of his elderly father in Oklahoma City, and so he's looking at real estate there, and he was looking at the nicest neighborhoods in Oklahoma City, and then like every other big city that's the premium neighborhoods, it's like $1 million, right, or more.
Yeah.
And he's saying, hey, with oil collapsing, people are dreaming if they think that their houses are worth like over $1 million. I'm really sorry. And so then you go, well, what's a house worth? And frankly, I just look at it like numbers, right? It's like commercial space. It's like, well, it's the rent, gross rent times, eight times, maybe 10, or if you're in a premium neighborhood, maybe 12 or 14. So if you're collecting, 20 grand in rent, that house is worth 160 grand. You may think it's worth, 500 grand or whatever, but it isn't. I'm sorry, And so there's going to be this huge, I think, collapse in commercial real estate as restaurants are going to say, well, you know what, pal, $6,000 for this little space. Let's try 3,500, or
Yeah.
let's try 3, because that's all I can afford. Or I'll go out and then you can get 0. So
Well, that,
take your pick.
yeah, that was something else I was talking to a chef about. I was like, look, I'm not sure what my prices are going to be when you guys come back because I'm not sure what the market's going to be, man. Like, I'm getting X amount a pound now. I'm going to try to still do that in the Toledo grocery stores, and I'm probably going to have to bump it down, which is okay. Like, I was doing well. So, but it's also like I want if I can help somebody I like working with stay in business by chopping off $3 a pound, I will. So I think it's for me. I don't even know who's going to come back. And then you look at Macy's; they closed all their stores. I mean, Macy's is in trouble. So what are these malls going to do? So I feel like the retail bubble was about to burst for a long time, and it's just like what what would have happened if we didn't throw gasoline on this fire? Like, it's just like, how long would it have taken? And or was it happening? So this is the smoke screen. I don't know, man. My brain gets going and I'm like,
Yeah, it certainly, it was a lot of evidence that all these bubbles were popping anyway, right? Like,
mhm.
um, globalization itself is a bubble in my mind. It was like
Happy that that's
Chinese exports were kind of flattening out. It was kind of like, okay, that's been worked to death. There's nothing left there, right?
yeah.
And yeah, and so, well, were you able, because you follow finance pretty closely, were you able to get anybody, out of the stock market before it collapsed? Because, I kept putting out warning signs, late January, hey, be careful. Only the first sellers are going to get their full,
No.
amount of money and stuff. And I don't think anybody acted on it except myself. And so, I mean, I know you acted on it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I had puts, so I want to shout out to Carl and the options gang. Because I've been learning just to trade options because I bought some stocks and I'm just not patient enough for stocks. It takes a long time to see a percentage. I'd rather gamble because I am a well-kept degenerate, Charles, so I don't mind.
Well, definitely options are the way to be able to leverage a small amount of money. I mean, you can make a lot of money with $1,000 in options where no matter what stock you buy for $1,000, it's not going to have the same effect. So congrats on that, for
Yeah,
scoring it.
I mean, it's definitely I I'm up pretty big this year from having puts. Like first, I had some puts on Facebook because I started getting on TradingView. My buddy Jess Moore, he reads your blog too, and he was saying he's my buddy. He shorted the housing bubble like back in like the early 2000, like when it went down. Made a few grand on that, and we've been doing these trade casts, and he was telling me like when I was first getting into it, like, well, you gotta learn charts, you gotta learn how to read charts. So go on TradingView and just look at people's ideas. So I found this guy Defuso or something. I follow him on. I subscribed to him on Telegram, but I first found him because he was saying, short. I'd bought insurance on like a play in the options gang. So basically, if we always say like, oh, we're gonna do a call, you want to get a put too to kind of cover hedge your bet. I think there's actual a name for that trade, but we're not that fancy in the options gang. And so I bought one for Twitter, and I bought it out like 6 weeks, and I was looking in the ideas for Twitter, and I found this guy, and it was dumb luck for me why I'd done it. And he said, "Yeah, I see it dipping into like the 36, 38 range." He was saying on the charts what he was reading, and then when those earnings came back and it dumped down to like 30, I was like, he was like, "This is a lot more than I thought," but it was like it was showing on the charts that it was gonna go down. So he did the same thing with Facebook, and I bought that. I bought puts and sold those. Like it would go up and I'd sell it when it'd go down, then go back up, and I'd rebuy. So I rebought the position on Facebook like 3 times. I got pretty lucky. And then my dad was talking about Square, and because we had the Square IPO that I kind of got screwed out of, but he still had it. And I was like, Dad, you're probably gonna. He's like, Square's probably gonna go back up, and I was like, why is that? He goes, because it just went down. And I'm like, I don't think so, Dad. I think it's got a long way to go. I would sell now. And so I was showing him like, I'm gonna buy a put right now that Square's gonna be at this price because I hit the guy up and he sent me his chart because I still am not good at making charts. I'm decently good at reading them. Yeah, certain people's charts. So he sends it. I go, yeah, I think it's gonna hit this. So I bought that put, and then it kept crashing. Then I sold it and I rebought more puts, and I made some decent money on Square, and I was showing it to my dad how much money I was making. And I was like, "Did you sell yet?" He goes, "No." He's like, "Man, if I had money, now would be a time to buy Square." I was like, "Or if he would have sold, now would have been a time to buy it back." But again, like he's like, I mean, guy, he's not a dummy. No, he understands stocks go up and down, but he could probably learn. I mean, like him and I are spending a lot more time together. But he's retired too. Like he doesn't give a shit. Like he has a good pension. Him and my stepmom spent a ton of time together. They're happy. Um, it's just one of those things. He's debt free, so what does he got to worry about? But I don't. I was trying to tell some of my uncles. They had some like stock in Cedar Point, and um, I didn't really set the alarm off too quick because I was really more into my business. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? This bubble,
Yeah.
this business is going away, and I was like trying to think that, and then I was like, well, let's jump in the stock market. And I made like a quick $1,000 just from buying puts. Didn't really matter what stock I was choosing, and then it was so I mean, I remember one day like I bought a, a put on SPY that ended the next day, and it was just the splits were pretty good, or the it was pretty good in my favor. So I day traded and I made like $100, and I was like, all right, I'm good with that. And then I pulled like half of my earnings out, and I'm like, this is just house money. And now I'm not looking too good because I bought more puts, and now the financial heroin's just been the helicopter money's just been flowing. Um, how long do you think, like, I mean, this is definitely, I still think the market's has more down to go personally.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. And of course, everyone's looking at analogies, right? Like 2008 or 1929 or whatever. I think this is a little different. I mean, I think to tell the truth, and you can ask your folks about this because they might have you got to be as old as I am. I'm 66, and I was actually out in the workforce in 1973, 74. That recession was really deep. I mean, that's when GM laid off 100,000 employees in one weekend, right? I mean, that was crushing, right? And so I remember 80, 81. You weren't even, I don't even think you were
But
born.
yeah, but
But that really hurt. It hurt a lot of sectors. And so like the recessions in the last like 30 years, like the 91 recession, brief, right? Kind of an oil crisis, the Kuwaiti invasion, Desert Storm, that was over in like 6 months. And then, the tech bubble only really hurt if you worked for a tech company, or if you speculated a lot in a tech stock or .com stock, you got hurt. But for the rest of the economy, it was like, yeah.
yeah,
And so, and then 2008, that hurt if you were speculating in housing. But if you weren't speculating in housing, it was kind of like, kind of blew over in 6, 9 months. This, I think, is going to be more like 1981. I think it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt across a lot of sectors. Part of why I think that is the average American, I think, and I like you, I'm not talking about people that don't know anything. I'm talking about people that, have save money and invested wisely and all that stuff, and they're just so used to it bouncing back. It's bounced back like 40 years, right? Their whole life. It's like buy the dip. And so the idea that it's going to go down for 9 months and crush anybody that's hanging on, that's just like, wow, that doesn't seem possible, but that's, I think, exactly what's going to happen.
my
So
thing.
I think we're going to have another leg down. I think this was, just to talk charts. And again, I'm not saying I'm recommending anybody take any action, right? Because I'm not a, licensed, speculator or whatever. I'm just saying, if you look at the charts, the odds are pretty good that this bounced to the 200-week moving average, et cetera, et cetera. And so, another leg down. And it's like, why would stocks go down? It's all like, well, profits are going to plummet and there's no certainty that they're going to come back.
Yeah,
And like people ask me, well, what about Tesla and Apple? And I'm going, well, wait a minute. Apple, its operating earnings have been flat for 4 years. And operating earnings is like, revenues minus operating expenses, and their operating expenses have gone up a lot. They've hired a lot more people, and blah blah blah. So they're actually not making any more money net per quarter than they were like 4 years ago. So it's like, people don't need $1,000 iPhone. I'm really sorry. That's what we call an aspirational purchase. All right. And the same with a Tesla. People don't actually need an electric car. They might like it, but if they need to save money, then forget it. So it's like, none of these like golden boy stocks, are really rock solid as people think. Like maybe Apple's worth maybe $100 a share, and it's trading at 250 or 260. It's like, hey, it could easily drop 150, and it would be fair. Maybe it'd be overvalued at 100. So people just they have to adjust to the reality that profits are going to fall, because so much of the spending is not really essential, right?
yeah,
And so as people's income falls or gets crimped, right, bonuses collapse, that kind of stuff. And then the wealth effect, right? People are looking at their 401ks or whatever, going, wow, or their house, like people think it's a savings account. Look, at my house is worth another $50,000, right? And it's all like, so what happens when it drops 50,000? Then you feel poorer, right? The reverse wealth effect. And nobody seems to be considering that. It seems real to me.
yeah. I 100% agree. What do you think of so we've been having all this helicopter money. I mean, I think if you just create $4 trillion out of nowhere, the inflation's bound to go up. There's modern monetary theory. It's people, from my understanding, that because we're not at negative interest rates and the dollar is the still like the global currency, we are at a point to where um it apparently our dollar just won't sink. Like the dollar's only getting stronger. What did you I thought it was strange that or as the as 4chan likes to call them, boomer rocks, the silver and gold tanked, big cryptocurrency tanked, and like the dollar's still super strong. Like I don't I
Yeah.
what do you I remember you were one to say the dollar was going to get strong before I started reading you. And just from like going back and you talking about it and you posting your old stuff. So what do you think about all this? Like do you think that do you think modern monetary theory works, or do you think it's just we just don't know yet, or it's eventually going to catch up with itself?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the question, Drew. And of course, I can ramble on. So about,
Oh,
this economic stuff. And so cut me off, man, But let me start by saying I'm reading this book called 1493. It's kind of an interesting book about the history of the New World, the Americas, North and South, after Columbus, uh, came and introduced the Europeans, and the diseases and the plants and the insects and everything else. And so, and one of the points the guy makes is the Spanish discovered just an incredible amount of silver, right, in South America. Well,
yeah,
that boosted the money supply in the world, right, because they were shipping, a lot of silver to China in exchange for silk. They had an insatiable desire for silk, and they, brought it back to Europe. And so, by tripling the amount of silver money, well, guess what? The value of silver fell by 2/3, and it bankrupted all these governments, because, and so, and this is like real money. This is the silver. So, of course, you can imagine what happens when you print like worthless money, i.e., paper money, in endless amounts. Well, you're going to get that same thing. You're going to get a 2/3 or decline in the value of that money. So, MMT and universal basic income will work in the short term, right? Kind of like as a head fake is what I call it. Like, well, yeah, in a crisis, giving away money is going to kind of support the demand side of the economy, and I'm in favor of that, right? Like, they should probably give everybody $1,200 a month until this thing blows over. Maybe it's 6 months, 9 months, whatever.
I think as a business
Good.
owner, I only get $600. Keep going though.
Yeah. And so, but longer term, yeah, it's going to erode the value of the money. And so, why is the dollar going up? Well, it's because, as I understand it, that a lot of overseas investors and businesses borrowed, you know, got loans denominated in dollars because it was cheaper than the loans they could get in their local currency. And I guess that's like, I don't know, maybe $3 trillion or something, a fair amount of money. So now they got to get dollars to service their debt or to pay it off. And so that could be like a head fake. In other words, the dollar will soar, kind of like the way that oil is crashing, but they're going to, that's kind of a head fake. That's not a permanent, trend. It's like a kind of a crisis situation, right? Like, I don't think oil is going to stay at $20 for long,
Yeah.
because it costs too much to get it out of the ground and refine it, right? But for maybe the next couple 4 months or whatever, it's going to be dirt cheap, you know.
Well,
So but that's kind of a head fake.
yeah, I just want to say, so in Toledo, like there's still a lot of oil plants there. And I was going to the store. It's on the east side. It's right near Sunoco has these giant um, you know, oil, I don't know what the hell you call them, but it's a refinery and there's a
Yeah.
train moving, shipping stuff from a storage location to the refinery. So we're still making oil. So I've heard so many conspiracies about Russia and Saudi Arabia and us and all this other stuff. I don't know it's true. I mean, they're fun to entertain. But do you think yeah, what do you see? Do you see anything in the future? Do you think this is some all part of some bigger game that's going on right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, Drew. And I don't know, I'm not in the oil industry, so all I can do is just read other people that seem, better informed than myself, right? And but it's pretty clear that the Saudis and the Russians are going to duke it out, right? One of them wants to dominate the global market. They both pump about 10, 12 billion, a million barrels a day. And so, they, by declining to cooperate, like each dropping their production so that, support the price, they've created this all-out war. And it's certainly somebody, in the Russian camp and people in the Saudi camp would love to destroy the U.S. Fracking industry, right? Which
Yeah.
is responsible for like doubling the U.S. production from 5 million barrels a day to 10 million. So it's definitely a serious geopolitical battle, and, I'm sure that there's a lot of conversations going on between, the major players, because it's killing everybody, right?
This
But
Canada is
it's like it's going for the jugular, man.
well, this hurts Canada especially too, right? Because of the tar sand oil. And they've already done
Yeah.
themselves enough with their environmental stuff. Like Edmonton especially has been taking a hit. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
interesting. My dad, he hasn't worked in a while, and I mean, there's a part of the reason it actually does work out to go to Toledo and try to build this extra money because it's like, man, like if I get even, which I should be able to, there's still going to be a lot of restaurants open here. Maybe not the ones I really want to work with, but it's like once things kind of come back, because I think restaurants are going to come back. I think because it's the number one form of entertainment here. People like going out to eat and getting cocktails or getting wine. So once that comes back, and it's like I have this grocery store thing, and I can pick up Toledo's restaurants too. It's like okay, I have a business for my family to kind of have some extra income too. So I think that's kind of been the way, I've really been looking at this as well, or even like get another house here, get another house just for Toledo. So I'm hoping that that I can still get gas for $1.15 a gallon for a while. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and how's the commute? How's the traffic? I mean, pretty light on that
Pretty light.
2-hour run, right?
Nobody there. The cops don't even want to pull you over because they're afraid.
Yeah, well, let's talk about how what adjustments can be made, right?
Yeah.
Because like I posted a link to some guy that was in the MIT, you know, uh, lab or something, and he was saying, hey, it's kind of like 9/11 changed the way we deal with airports and security, right? It wasn't the end of the world. It just meant, okay, there's some additional hassles, or we have to do some certain things to try to safeguard everybody, blah, 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 right? And so you look ahead and you go, okay, how like at least here, a lot of like Safeway and a lot of the supermarkets are, they have this like senior, hour, right? Like if you want to just shop with seniors, then and you're a senior, then you can go at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning or whatever. And so you can say, well, if that works, and actually people are saying, well, actually it's so crowded that you're more likely to get the virus during senior hour. But the idea is like, well, let's say in restaurants, you could say, okay, look, at young people are really, if you're healthy and young, the chances of you, getting a serious case is pretty limited, right? So, okay, but we're going to have a senior hour early or something, right? Where if you want to keep social distance and blah blah, well, we're going to accommodate you, right? And then you come in, we seat you at 6 feet apart and all that stuff. Why wouldn't that work, right? I mean, just kind of common sense. Ask everybody in senior hour to wear a mask, or seat 6 feet apart. And then after their hour, then you seat everybody who's younger and doesn't really have the same concerns. I don't know. It's just a thought experiment.
I think something like that is going to happen. Especially since like the schools, I don't know. I think April 6th we're going to start to see things getting dialed back. That's officially a month since like most like I know there's a bill that they started, and so I think most of these states are going to have their money. So I think this is a little bit of a cash grab for these states too. Power grab, cash grab. Because that's the way governments work. And then I think we are going to see that. I hope we do. I know that at the store in Toledo, most stores in Toledo, the liquor store, it's confusing because they have the 6 feet tape. People were pretty nice in the liquor store. I was pretty happy about that. There's this nice big one. I was stopping home to get something for my parents on the way back, and it was confusing because you don't know how to move through the lines. But they put out the 6 feet for social distancing, which I still have. That's a subconscious thing that I have a lot of issues with. Because there's so many things you could say, like personal space, 6 foot personal space. I mean, there's so many more positive ways you could say it. And so they have that in stores. You know, I think it's interesting. Like, there's people in stores that don't even want to go to work. They're so scared of this stuff. I think especially the generation below me, Generation Z, seems to be really scared or really like over the top. It's like a mix of both. Like I I've seen a lot of silly stuff online. So I don't know. I think that I think that's a great idea. I mean, for me personally, I just go. What's cool is I've come across. Hey, I got my grandfather's list. There's this really sweet girl I know from back in the day, and she said, "Hey, I'm in this area. If you have grandparents around here, you want me to go shopping for them, let me know." And it's like, so I do see a lot of positive community things. People are playing a lot more board games now. I think kids are sick of having to be home all the time on their phones. So that's good news. I think parents actually have to spend time with their children. I think that's also good news. Maybe they can see how they're not that great of a parent or that they're a good parent. I think people need to practice self-discipline. People can realize just kind of, what do you really need? And so I think, and I think that could affect the economy, but maybe we can get back to more of the real economy. And I think, you should try to have conversations with people when you go out in public. Like, be nice. People need that. Kindness and empathy and gratitude go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that in Hawaii, that's this they call it the spirit of aloha, which is just being like polite, friendly, just kind of basic human, nature.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about one of the things I want to compliment you on too is frugality. That we've talked about this in the past, that, in the transition from a high expense, high income lifestyle to getting by on less. I mean, I think that's going to be the future, that as the bubbles pop, then there's going to be less wealth, right? I mean, the property is going to fall. I think stocks could slide for, who knows, 9 months, 18 months, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there and bubbles pop. And so if frugality is going to be, I mean, I wrote a piece called The New Frugality, and it's something you and I have practiced a long time and have talked about. And it's been a core, I think, reason why you've succeeded is you just cut your expense basis to the bone. And so you can get by on a lot less. And so that gives you more flexibility and freedom, and a net much earlier than people that have a high expense lifestyle. So I don't know if you want to talk to that.
Absolutely, and I want to shout out my good friend. I had him on the show, Doe Dupes. I'm gonna have him back on because I was doing profit first for my business, and then I started making money and paying myself. But then I got in this. Well, I just kept reinvesting my money, and I broke profit first, and then it's like, okay, I get my personal money, and then I would just go and spend it all because it was just like, you know. So I think for me, like I use a virtual envelope system. I use bank accounts with pretty much just a virtual envelope system. Every account has a percentage assigned to it. Learning options trading, I set aside 20% of what I would pay myself for investments. And it was like, you know what, 20%, that's not that much because housing's covered, this is covered, this is covered. And I'm learning a skill. What would I pay if I went to go take a course and learn this or, pay for, all this stuff that people think they need? For me, it's like, okay, well, let's just get going. Like I'm ready to fail forward. I'm ready to get some bumps and bruises and scrapes. And so, working with Doe really kind of helped me reset a lot of things. My buddy Doe Dubes in his course. So there's a link in the show notes to buy his book. He wrote a couple of them. They're called Stop Being Poor. So, and something he's been really hyping on is like people who he's coached. They had these emergency funds. They've been saving their money. They'd cut down their expenses. When I started working with him, I immediately canceled my cell phone service with Verizon. I canceled my Netflix. I just reduced a lot of monthly expenses that I'd already cut down quite a bit. And I was like, do I really need this? No. And probably about to do it again because my income went from, I was doing pretty well this year to nothing. So I think that, practicing discipline and like, okay, so I'm only going to spend 20% of my income a month for me, like just to do whatever. And you can even then break down that 20%. Like this goes into, if you like to buy clothes, like I don't buy clothes, man. I buy like plain t-shirts. I have it. This is from the silly Joker t-shirts from my previous life of being a child working at Time Warner Cable. But now that I'm working for my business, like I just go in public. I try to not have any brands that are affiliated. I don't even wear my own brand. I just try to blend in and move through the day. You know me because I want you to know me. And I think that's kind of been my attitude. And I think, I don't have I'm ahead on my mortgage. because I was been paying 25% of my income, and thankfully my mortgage is so low that 25% of my income is more than what I needed for my mortgage, and I just kept paying it. 'Cause it's like, well, I'll just pay it off sooner. And I paid down most of my debt because I was spending 20% just trying to in a debt destruction account. Let me pay down these credit cards. I don't need them this high anymore. Like I don't need to spend as much money. And so it's removing, you know, basically like removing. I've had to remove. I've had to protect myself from myself because I like to have fun. I like to go out. Oh, we're out. Hey, let me buy you a drink. You know what I mean? Like I'm a nice guy. Like let's have a conversation. I'll buy you a drink, or let's I'll cover the tab. I got money. It's cool. I'll cover it. Like that's how I've always been. I did it a whole lot more when I had money, and it's because I'm like, yeah, I want to share fun. Like I don't. What's fun of me just doing this on my own? That's lame. I want to share. So I mean, like, so I think people used to see my generosity and think, "God, this guy's bad with his money." It's like, no, I was just choosing to spend my money that way because I got enjoyment out of it. It's just money. It's a tool. So I think, yeah, I think people need to look. You don't need the unlimited plan from Verizon. Look at some prepaid things. Like I use Visible. I pay $25 a month for unlimited everything. Sure, the service isn't as great, but man, Verizon's unlimited everything wasn't worth $75 more a month. So it's not. So I think it's what is it worth? What's the value? I don't need Netflix. I don't need cable. I have high speed internet. If I'm doing an activity that I can't do to try to learn to make money or to enjoy myself or express myself, then I shouldn't be doing it. Like for me, it's I had to really change the way. I mean, you know, I think people hopefully are going to start reading more books too, Charles. Hopefully,
Yeah, yeah.
reality was helpful there. I went on these tangents, Charles. I'm glad I can have you on my show so I can talk over you. No, I'm just teasing.
Well, yeah, no, it's been great to catch up, and I yeah, as you know, I admire that you're to me in the front line of the kind of change that our whole economy and society needs, and you speak to that, very fluently and from experience. So, like you're talking the talk, but you're doing, you're walking the walk, and so that's why I think our shows have value. Me, I mean, all I can speak to is, like, hey, I'm just used to failing, and so I just consider it part of the thing, and so I don't feel so afraid of things. You get burned when things don't work out, but then you learn something, and that's really what life's about. So you don't want to be stuck in the same place. That's boring. So, and
Absolutely.
I totally agree with you. Like having some splurge money, guilty pleasures is what I call it.
Yeah.
So there you
Whether it
go. It's
be
like you
going
just
to
set it aside and enjoy it, but it's like a limited amount, right? So, and that
yeah,
actually makes it more enjoyable.
yeah, I think, delaying gratification is always the key. I think that's like if you can try to delay instant gratification as much as possible, that I think you're in a good position. If learn to cook, man. Like this is a good time for people to get on YouTube, learn to cook. Like I was thinking
Totally.
when people went out and bought all these groceries, it's like none of y'all even know how to cook any of that crap. Most of them were just buying brand name macaronis and Roman ramen noodles and like a bunch of meat to throw in their freezer that one day they'll learn how to cook. I think it's just so funny. Frozen pizzas are good though. That's a good. I don't, but
No, but yeah, that's the upside of it. Well, I know we got to wrap up here because we don't want to, take our listeners too far. But where do you see the opportunity here? Because I know everyone's, it's easy to focus on the downer part of it, but I mean, isn't there opportunities in this whole thing? And even if the bubbles pop, I mean, isn't that actually a good thing in some way?
yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity. I think the opportunity is going to lie in being willing to do stuff when people aren't. I mean, people. I think once the once they take the shackles off us, like not me. I mean, I've never really had them. I was like, oh, I'm essential, yay, and I would have figured out a way to be essential anyway. And I think that, like, I think once these shackles are removed, um, I think people are gonna hopefully have better relationships with their families. I think they're gonna understand quality time with their family a lot more. Maybe they're even eating dinners together again, like at the table. I think that there's opportunity for people to buy real estate here soon. I think there's opportunities for people to, learn skills. I mean, you're at home. Now's a good time to learn Python or coding. I know I want to learn some coding stuff. So my dad and I, we've been messing with these computers that we just had these extra computers that we were like, let's see if we can put a Linux distro on it. And so him and I've just been spending quality time together. And it's like, I've been spending quality time with my stepmom, like more so than, oh, I got to get back and harvest because like I'm not having to do that now. Now it's like, they see me grinding, they see me still going out there trying to get new business. I think now's a good time to get new business. If you can still operate business, do it because those are people you want to work with, people that aren't scared to leave their house. I think that,
Yeah.
and especially young people, and people, you know, I think there's opportunity for people to. I think there's going to be an opportunity because much like people who discovered the Patriot Act and went down any number of rabbit holes at 9/11. I think there was definitely some blowback with that from trust with the American people. I think that's going to come in a huge wave again. Hopefully, maybe we can see how messed up our oligarchical system is. I'm I'm always optimistic. I think that there's always somebody out there trying to take your freedom, but as long as you control what's going on between your ears, no one's ever going to be able to take it away from you. You're going to see opportunities. You're going to recognize this can happen here, this can happen there. I'm not going to say specific opportunities because I don't know, but I think then now's the time for people to pay attention and say, maybe sit down and start brainstorming with some friends. Like, God works. This is so much fun being at home. Like people who learn that they actually can work from home. This might be a good time for you to figure out what kind of business you could start and do it from home, or you know what I mean? So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities. I think there's going to be a lot of people that lose a lot. There's going to be a lot of people that don't recover from this, and I don't feel good about that. I mean, I feel really sad about that. There's going to be there's always a mixed bag. Wherever there's bad, there's always good. Where there's light, there's always darkness. So I can't say anything specifically. I know that there's some bullshit farmers that want to teach you how to farm. Maybe I should become one of those because I think I'd actually be able to teach you stuff. But everyone's saying now's the time, and it's like, man, it is, and it's not. And I mean, everybody wants to learn how to garden right now. That's cool. I've never had so many people ask me questions. I had, and that's exciting. People want to have that relationship with, their food, which maybe they'll understand soil. Maybe they won't, pollute or throw trash outside anymore. So, if this whole thing makes people feel more conscious, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think I also think that you're improving people's diet, and hopefully that's one thing that people are maybe waking up to is like, hey, uh, being eating really poorly and being out of shape and being in poor health is like, well, that puts you, in the target goes right over you, right? So
Yeah, or
it's
people that
like,
learn to work
yeah,
from home versus paying money to waste at a gym. Like,
yeah, yeah,
like
that's right.
I think there's gonna be a lot more self-discipline, hopefully. I think, that's a good time to clean your house. Like we've been getting organized here. I think, not as much. I haven't been here, but Rich he's still working. He's still living here, so he's still working. He's doing, he's getting our stuff all organized in the basement because it's just been I mean, we hit the ground in 2017 and we're just been pushing. So now it's like, okay, we're kind of starting over. So let's get some spring cleaning. And I think,
Yeah,
that's
totally agree. Yeah. Well,
what
let me summarize it from
yeah.
my end to wrap it up is, what you're talking about, what I hear is like, manage your own capital. That's your cash, your savings, but your 401k, your house, and your labor, your skills. I mean, manage it. Don't think that somebody else, some, guy that's, a gambler essentially running your mutual fund is going to, is going to win. He may not. So take control of your own capital. And that's what I think you're doing. And yeah, for myself, I had this little basement area that was just like dirt, and it was all rocky and it was useless. So we dug it out and I poured some concrete, and so now we have a little space for tools and stuff. And so yeah, there's a lot of improvements that you can do
Just listen.
around your house if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do some old school construction work that was probably a little bit of fun, and you're like, God, this is fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't do this full time anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey man, let's not leave it so long, but I really appreciate you having me on the show. And
Our pleasure. Everyone go to of2minds.com. Charles, what's your most recent book?
it's called "Will We Be Richer or Poorer?" And AI, artificial intelligence, and in a traumatized world. And it actually sounds like I predicted this. I didn't, but the title is really apt. It's true. Are we going to be richer or poorer? Well, it depends on how we respond.
Sure,
We
they're
can't
all
be just
on Audible now as well. Definitely check out of2minds.com. Charles is also going to be on the Peak Prosperity podcast here soon. So, but definitely follow Charles. I've been following Charles for, I don't know, we've been
maybe 10 years.
It feels like, I think it's been 7, I think. So because it was 2014 was the first time I had you on, so 6 years.
Oh wow! Oh, my
Yeah.
God, we have such a history, man.
We do, man. It's the first time we've seen each other face to face. Eventually, once this all blows over, we'll hang out in person.
Yeah, I definitely want to come to Columbus and eat at all the places that are buying your produce.
Yeah, hopefully they reopen. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, this live podcast went well. This is the first ever live. Michael Jordan and I did a test one, and then Marvin and I did one. We just recorded the video. I sent that to you. Marvin's doing well. So,
yeah, I know he's so cool what he's doing in Africa and all this stuff. Yeah,
definitely. So, well, thanks again, Charles, for tuning in. Everyone, thanks for listening.